This is the Extended Gamut Podcast, the podcast for printing professionals.
We explore trending topics in the print industry, meet with industry experts, and take your questions. But today, special topic, we are discussing
FESPA.
What is that? Is that what we're discussing today?
Yeah, no, I can't tell you in the intro. You have to...
Okay, well, stay tuned. FESPA. Andy, we did it. 1 year
Of podcasts.
of podcast. This is it.
It actually has flown by.
It's our 13th episode.
We wanted to do an episode every 2 weeks, so we're 50% to plan.
Is that what is that, a C? 50%?
It's an F in any scale.
We overpromised and underdelivered.
Well, I don't know if we told everyone, but now we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I think
hopefully,
a month is a good cadence.
yeah. We've had guests. We've answered questions. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into a specific printing-related trade show and what it is, the history of it, why it matters, and some cool things that came out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've heard of FESPA for a number of years, but I get it confused with all the other trade shows in Europe, and I don't know a whole lot about it. I just know every once in a while you hear like, oh no, that printer's going to be announced at FESPA. So you did some research on FESPA.
Well, we have a storied history of attending trade shows, exhibiting at trade shows, visiting trade shows. I don't know. I don't want to be crazy, but what do you think the number of trade shows you and I have been at together?
If we say conservatively 5 a year, 4 a year,
Maybe more.
for 12 years.
Yeah. So it's,
35
I was
trade
going to
shows?
say 50 to 100.
Yeah. It's a lot of trade shows.
Yeah.
All of them in the U.S.
All of them in the U.S. I have had the chance to attend some trade shows internationally, but never FESPA. So I did a little research. First thing I always like to do is, what does that actually stand for? Because there are a bunch of different shows out there, and our industry loves acronyms. So what do you think the F stands for?
Well, I know.
Oh,
Well, because this is our second time recording this, because you forgot to hit record.
that's true. That's true. We have filmed this podcast and recorded it. Well, this is actually the first time we're recording it.
Yeah, this is our second time. We did a really good, honest rehearsal run.
We did.
So this is going to
We
be
have
real
the
tight.
video for it, but absolutely no audio. So here we go again.
So the F stands for...
Yeah, Andy did guess this correctly originally. It's the Federation of European Screen Printers Associations. And it really was tied to screen printing. And they put on...
European Screen Printing Association. Okay.
Yeah, Federation of European Screen Printers Associations. Way back, this is 1962. There were these screen printers and how do you do things, and there was the process for screen printing. And it was like this closely held secret, but they wanted to standardize on stuff. And it was like how they'd make you pay all these fees so you could learn how to do the process. And there was these associations, and there's a pretty unique backstory to it all. But it was really, they would do exhibitions and conferences for screen printers and digital printing. But then the advent of digital technology, it was like, well, there's a lot more going on than screen printing. And if we call it screen printing, so they started just using the acronym FESPA. And we could go even further down the road, but I'll spare everyone. But 1962, it's about 40 different associations. They hold it annually. And when I look at like size and how many people go to it, it's about 20,000 people. So
20,000. Okay.
So we had talked on the podcast about Printing United setting some records and eclipsing 30,000.
Yeah. Coming out of COVID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But And there's been a year where FESPA had over 30,000, but it seems to be on par with like a Printing United or even an ISA in the United States because it's held every year. And it just seems to be like a major show for Europe as those are major shows for the United States.
It rotates around kind of where in Europe, different sites, similar to Printing United or ISA.
Yeah, so I looked at some other notable shows in Europe. I've been to Drupa and I went to ITMA. So Drupa was in 2016 and ITMA was in 2019. Those now are shows that are every 4 years. So that's why they're not necessarily the same as FESPA. ITMA, another acronym. Can you believe it? What do you think that stands for?
Textile.
Good.
International Textile.
International Textile Machinery Association. So when I went there, it was like, here's all the machines that are being used around the world to produce textiles. And then all the, and you could think about all the ancillary things around that. But it was a pretty cool show. It was in Barcelona. That one moves around as well. It's in Milan. It starts like this month. So
we could still go.
We could go. Milan, Italy.
Live from Milan.
We'll have to check with our sponsors.
If you want to be a sponsor, let us know.
All right, I just checked with them. All right, 1951, it was founded, 100,000 visitors. So that's a significant, but you think it's being held every 4 years. So
100,000. Yeah, so it's about the same per year. You just kind of wait and then everyone shows up.
And then you get to the biggest show, which is Drupa. What do you think Drupa stands for? The Dominican Republic,
Dominican.
Ursula? No. It's actually for Druck und Papier, which translated print and paper. And they take the DR from Druck, the U, the PA, and they put it all together, and it's Drupa.
I took 4 years of Spanish, and I still missed it.
Well, it's not Spanish. That's probably part of the problem. Interestingly enough, Drupa and ITMA both founded in 1951. So
good year for associations.
Good year to start things like that. But it is held every 4 years. Their next show is in 2024. They, though, tout over 2,000 exhibitors alone. It's always in the same spot, which is Dusseldorf, Germany, and 250 to 400,000 attendees.
Whoa.
So it's like an Olympic-sized everything, meaning there's 25 to 30 buildings. You're walking around a campus. You're going in and out. It's not like a traditional United States trade show where you walk in and you're like, all right, I'm going to go to the back wall and I'm going to go up and down and I'm going to be done. This is like you're going to go there for a few days and you probably aren't even going to get into like 7 of the halls.
Yeah.
So
when's that one?
And that's 2024. So next year. It was in 2016. 2020 didn't happen. So 2024. And they do some interesting things. I don't know for 2024, but they'll do like a theme every year, which it could be binding one year or a different element of printing, workflow automation. They also, I read, would have a song created, like a theme song created for every year. If this is fascinating to you, look it up. Who knows?
With AI, you can generate songs really quickly now.
Yeah. I think Drake is doing an AI generated version of the Drupa song for 2024.
It'll be their best song yet.
Do you know the acronym Drake, what it stands? I'm just kidding.
Drook.
All right. So that's your overview, whether you like it or not, of FESPA, what it stands for, the history, how it compares to other shows. But really what I think people would be interested in is what technology was maybe released at FESPA? Because what we found is sometimes manufacturers release stuff at Printing United or ISA. Sometimes they wait for Drupa or ITMA every 4 years. And then sometimes they're releasing things at FESPA because they're going to take a printer to Europe first. A lot of times Europe gets printing technology before the United States. Because a lot of times we're looking at emerging trends and they say, well, what did Europe do 2 years ago? That trend might be coming this way, whether it's what they're printing on. So you did some research, and you're going to tell us about some interesting things that might apply to technologies tied to things our listeners might be interested in. Now, these were announced in Europe, not announced in the United States.
Right.
And this is just from different research we've done.
Yep. So, yeah, the research was looking at, different publications, trade publications that kind of recap the show.
Okay.
Here's the hot printers. Here's what was discussed. There's a lot of printers, obviously.
I saw the list of printers you were researching.
Yeah.
And then I know you picked maybe 3 to go through today.
Yeah. So I just picked 3. I narrowed it down to ones I thought kind of overlapped with what our listeners would want to hear about, where our markets kind of play. So, yeah.
All right. So, printer number 1. What do you got?
I have a new latex printer.
Oh, from HP.
From HP.
No?
Not from HP.
Really?
No. Everyone has followed in HP's footsteps, but this one is from a new player, someone that doesn't have, I don't think, any wide format printing right now. Super interesting. So it's the Brother WF1 latex printer. So Brother, the Japanese manufacturer who makes, office printers.
Yeah, they would do they used to do fax. They were really popular in fax machines.
Yeah.
And the little label machines. They would do things for crafters. And then they now do a lot with T-shirts.
Yeah. So they were early on in T-shirts and still a big player with T-shirt printers. So they have their GTX DTG printers. And so this is a collaboration actually with Roland, another player in the markets that we...
Not with Drake.
Not with Drake. No, this is not a collab with Drake.
Okay.
Dang. But Roland is building... So Roland has a resin printer. It's really interesting to see some people. So every HP started this market with latex printing, and they coined that term latex and
latex.
Latex. That's how they say it at ITMA. And some people have decided to use the more scientific name, which is resin, as opposed to the more marketing name that HP created called latex. So if you look at like Epson, they're going to call it resin, and Roland is going to call it resin. They're not going to give HP the satisfaction of creating a market, but Brother is going to call it latex. So it's their WF1 latex printer. So that's kind of interesting. It is built on the same chassis, and if you look at pictures, they look identical as the Roland DG TrueViz AP640, their resin printer. So just really interesting to see these two companies working together. So it's all Roland parts on the printer, except for its Brother print heads that are derived from the GTX piezo print heads that they've been using. So they are, I don't want to say repurposed, but that's what it's based on. And they have a lot of history with those print heads. So that's what they're going to use.
We've almost seen the opposite in the industry, but in the past,
What's
you've
that?
seen people develop their own body, but then they outsource and put in a print head. Remember the Epson GS6000? They would take that print head and they put it in someone else because someone else could design the body.
Muto built the body, and then Epson, because they have their core competency is building these print heads, then they put their print heads in. Yeah. So this is kind of the flip side of that. So, but it has the Brother brand. It's actually, I guess it's very similar to that because you have Brother has the print heads, just like Epson had the print heads, and they said, hey, we need someone that knows how to make a roll-to-roll printer, and Roland knows how to do that. And so they collaborated. It looks to be pretty entry-level. It has a kind of production mode of 160 square feet per hour, which is pretty, it's not super high speed at all. So I just thought that was interesting. Another latex resin printer. So if you look, I think the first one that came out after HP was Ricoh. And then Epson's got their resin. Muto, Roland, we just talked about, has a resin. Mamaki had a resin at one point. I don't know if they still do.
There was a color painter.
Yeah, and I don't know if
I think it
that.
was Seiko color painter or something that there was touting
Okay.
latex.
Yeah, I can't even keep up with them, but HP's definitely created a market, and I think, yeah, I mean, with the move towards sustainability and some of the applications you can do with resin that you can't do with, say, solvent or UV, I think, it's here to stay, and everyone's trying to get a slice of the pie.
Large corporations, I'm finding, are making a lot of pledges to being carbon neutral, or they're going to, there's all these things. So I think it's driving a lot of these technology companies to looking at what products they're producing. And it seems like latex resin is an emerging technology that has been around for 10 plus years, but is now catching steam and is here to stay probably with a lot of the manufacturers.
Yeah.
And at risk is solvent. Probably up next at risk would be UV, because these are technologies that are probably not the friendliest to the environment. And if you're a big company like HP and you're selling a product that goes in one direction, but your mission or vision that you're putting out there is we're going to go this direction,
Yeah.
I mean, HP did that 5 years ago with doing a latex flatbed.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who follows in their footsteps on that side too. Right. So they have a rigid printer that's water-based resin latex, and everyone else is doing it with UV. And that's how, if you look at the roll-to-roll 64-inch printing market, that's exactly how it was 15 years ago. There was, or whatever it is now, 13 years ago, there was HP doing it with latex and everyone else doing it with solvent. And now you see all those companies have, made latex printers. So maybe we'll see that with the flatbed market.
So that's interesting. It'll be interesting where they're going with it. And so we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, brother, making latex printers. Yeah. So there you go. That's a new printer.
Next up, you have the Mamaki printer on here.
Yeah, Mamaki TXF 150. So this is a DTF printer. It's a roll-based DTF printer. So it's on a stand. It looks similar to some of the other roll-to-roll printers that you see out there, but this one is DTF. So it prints 31.5 inches wide. So it's not maybe as wide as some of the printers we see out there, but this one.
But if you're doing DTF.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. This one came as an announcement at ISA in, when was ISA? April?
Beginning of May?
April. So ISA, I guess in this case, the US had the first announcement for a new product, and now it just launched in Europe at FESPA. So this is the first that they're seeing it. I found it to be super interesting. So Mamaki has explicitly said on their brochure, we offer our product in printer, ink, and rip. And then the next sentence is consult with the distributor about film, powder, shaker, and post-process machine. So it's a roll printed DTF printer, and it's made to work in a roll-fed, roll-to-roll type of workflow. Mm-hmm. But Mamaki has put their hands up and said, we don't worry. It's not our shaker. It's not our film. It's not our powder applicator. It's not our dryer afterwards. They we make the ink and the printer and the rip. So we still don't really have a OEM, I'd consider Mamaki a big OEM solution for DTF, where they've taken the whole thing and they put their name on it and they've warrantied it. And so we're still kind of in the Wild West, but it's another step towards DTF as a mainstream application. It's not super fast. It's only 35 square feet per hour. So that's turning the clock back about 15 years on other inkjet technologies that were roll to roll. So like Epson's Stylus 10,000 or, whatever, 7880.
But if you're doing DTF, you're going to have to lay down 2 layers, right? Because you have to lay down the color first and then the white.
Yep.
So that's going to... We haven't found any high-speed DTF machines really out there.
And that's what it's interesting to see. It's new. So people are starting from scratch using, some of their experience from other applications, but it's interesting to see how this is all going to shake out. Ha, pun intended. So
I find the most interesting thing I find is this. The number one state to buy pickup trucks in the United States is Texas. And the number one truck sold is the F-150. And they've gone all in on naming it the TX F-150.
Yeah. Yeah. You think they did that on purpose?
I don't know.
I didn't even notice it.
What if we just named printers after like cars that are popular?
You don't think it was just a team in Japan that they have no idea what the American truck...
Next time they come out with a printer, if it's the Oregon Prius, maybe we'll be onto something.
Yeah. So that's DTF is one that we have our eyes on, obviously.
Yeah.
With Epson having their DTG printers that are capable of printing DTF film. I still feel like right now, if I were going to do DTF printing, I would want to do it on either an F2100 or an F3070 for a number of reasons, but the warranty and the support is the number one thing. And here, the all-in-one printer, powder applicator, dryer, those systems, none of them are made by an OEM. Like we said, they're kind of pieced together with by third parties that are kind of more integrating it, and nobody's doing it at scale or with the support to be able to, that I would feel comfortable with. So, but we'll see. I think the way that Epson has approached markets in the past is they see how it all shakes out, and then they see the problems that are in some of the other, like if we look at DyeSub, people were using their printers and putting third party, like Sawgrass inks or whatever. And that caused a lot of issues, but Epson sat back and looked and saw like, oh, this is actually a market. People are buying this. And then they came out with their own in 2013.
F6070.
Yep. And they entered the market, and now they are dominant in the sizes and spaces they play. And we'll see if they do the same. So if DTF becomes a big enough market, I could see them totally.
I mean, they did with flatbeds.
Yeah.
And now for flatbeds under 100,000, they got number one market share.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's only been out 2 years.
Yep. That's their MO. So we'll see if they do it again with DTF. It's one we have our eyes on.
All right, so we have Brother with a latex printer, Mamaki with this DTF printer.
Yep.
And I think most interesting at the show, with the most wide-reaching implications, is they announced what printer at FESPA?
The Epson F2200 DTG printer.
Okay. So this is a printer for Europe, not announced in the United States.
Right. So you're
not going to develop a printer like that and not bring it to the United States. But for now, it's been announced in Europe.
Right. Every printer that gets announced in Europe, from Epson at least, at one point makes it to Australia, makes it to the US, makes it. They don't. If they're going to build a platform, they're going to sell it everywhere they can. So, but we don't have any. We're not going to break any news on when it's launching. We don't have that.
Come on, tell us, Andy.
But I can tell you about the printer.
Can you tell us what they announced in Europe?
Yeah, I can tell you about what they announced in Europe. So it's the same print size as the F2100 and the F3070. So it's 16 by 20 max print platen. So it's not a bigger printer.
But it looks more like the F2100 than it does the F30.
Right. So footprint more similar to the F2100, which is a tabletop type printer. It uses 800 milliliter ink packs, so similar to what we've seen in other printers that they've come out with, where they've moved away from a cartridge and into a pouch that.
And that's a corporate initiative worldwide. They're getting rid of the boxes because of all the cardboard it makes, so that they can achieve their vision of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It reduces their cost too, but it also is about the waste and how much recycling is needed.
Counterpoint.
Counterpoint.
4, 5, 6 months ago, they came out with the P8570, and that's all cartridges. So not every printer is getting a cartridgeless option, but it's usually, there is a version of that printer that has ink packs for more bulk printing.
Maybe to get a lower ink price?
To get a lower ink price, yeah. So I have no idea what ink price in Europe is for cartridges versus these packs. I don't know that Epson even announced that at the show.
I'm saying in general, though, like the one that has more volume, maybe they're trying to cut out.
Yeah.
Who knows? All right.
So that's interesting, though. So that's 800 milliliter ink packs.
What does the F2100 have?
600.
600. Okay, so it's more volume.
It uses a 4.3 inch touchscreen. So versus that control panel that you see on some of the older Epson printers. So that's more in line with what is on their latest printers. So the F3070.
I saw a picture from the FESPA announcement of the printer, and it also looked like the 8570 screen.
Yeah.
The P8570 screen.
It's that same 4.3 inch, touch screen, which is nice. I really like that. It's a lot more intuitive and easy to use than clicking through
the arrows.
Yeah. It has auto head height adjustment. So that's something that the F3070 has now. So where you can load a shirt, within a range, within a tolerance, but it'll adjust automatically to the platen, so that you're getting as close as you can to the platen to get print quality, but not so close that you get a head strike.
Right.
And it's doing that on the fly. So loading a thin shirt and then a sweatshirt and then another thin shirt back and forth, it will make those adjustments automatically. And let's see. So they also, part of this press release that I read in Europe was about the new software. So it's Garment Creator 2 software. So it was kind of the big feature they talked about in the software is the ability to do direct film. So to be able to switch from DTG to DTF, like the layering, where you put your white layer. It was also saying that it's going to be faster processing. So the software is a big upgrade, they said, as well in what's included in the bundle. So
okay.
And then print speed. So they said it's about 15% faster on dark shirts and 25% faster on light shirts than the F2100. And so it appears to be a replacement for the 2100. That's how they positioned it in the press release, is like comparing it to that model. So that's yet to be seen. We'll see what happens here in the US, but reading between the lines in a European press release and all the videos that are up on, I mean, you can, if you want to type in FESPA Epson F2200, you can read everything that I read about it. So there you go. Those are 3 printers that I think will have an impact on our market and where we play in the market. And
Well, thanks for looking into it. I found it valuable. I'm sure our viewers and listeners.
There's got to be one guy who liked one of these 3 printers.
So we learned about FESPA. We learned about some of the unique technologies that were either announced or shown there. Obviously, that wasn't it, but those were a couple that you picked. And
Yeah.
That's what we got for today, right? I'd say that's it for this episode of the Extended Gamut.
Next year, our podcasts are going to be 50% better.
Okay. I like it. Well, hopefully you learned a few things and enjoyed the extended conversation on today's topic, FESPA. So you can find us on all the usual platforms and let us know if you have topics you'd like us to discuss in the future. For now,
thanks for watching.